Welcome, everyone. Dr. Anthony Criniti IV here, also known as Dr. Finance. You're on the Dr. Finance Live podcast. We got an incredible speaker today, incredible guest. We got Lisa Copeland in the house. Lisa is one of the top real estate agents selling real estate, all kinds of great stuff with real estate, EXP Realty. We're going to learn all about that. She's going to clarify everything I just said. And she's also one of the top keynote speakers out there. So let's give a warm welcome for Lisa. Welcome, Lisa. How are you?
Great. How are you doing? Thanks for having me.
It's an honor, pleasure to have you, Lisa. Lisa, to get started, we'll do a quick 30-second snapshot of yourself. If you want to just tell us a quick summary of yourself in 30 seconds, we'll get to your story, and then I got about 20 questions after that, and that should take us to the finish line.
Okay, cool. Let's see. I'm Lisa Copeland. I live in Central Texas. I've been here about 40 years. Living in Central Texas, so I consider myself a native Texan for sure. I am a wife, a mom. I've got 2 great kids and 3 amazing grandsons, and I have got one of the largest teams with EXP Realty. I've got about 850 agents on my team, and I love the real estate game. And formerly, I was a car dealer. I was a new car dealer here in Austin, Texas. So I've kind of run the whole gamut. I own a mortgage company, so I've done mortgages. I owned an insurance company, a car dealership, and now I'm in the real estate game.
That's incredible. Thank you so much, Lisa. So Lisa, we're going to get into your story. Let's take it back from the beginning. I believe you're a California native. You want to tell us about your first 10 years, your childhood, and try to give us a picture how you got so successful.
Yeah, you have to have really dug to find that out. Yeah, so I was born in San Jose. Actually, I was born in Menlo Park, California, at Stanford Hospital. So that's up in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I was out there until I was about 15. And life was good. My dad was an entrepreneur, very, very successful in Silicon Valley, and that's where I think I got my entrepreneurial roots from. My mom's a PhD. She was a clinical psychologist. And so I came to Texas when I was 15, and I just never looked back. I mean, I like California, okay, but I never missed it. And so anyways, here I am, and I love Texas. I was a fashion major in school, and then I had a car wreck where I wrecked my car, and I had not paid my car insurance like any good fashion major. My dad had given me the money, and I did not pay it because I was buying clothes. And I totaled my car. My car was totaled. I called my dad and I said, I need a new car because my car is totaled. My dad's like, yeah, that's what insurance is for. And I said, well, the insurance company says they're not going to pay it. And the words that really changed my life and defined me was, he said, figure it out, kid. And that's really, I think, where my journey begins, right? Was that whole figure it out, kid. Because when you figure things out, or when you get yourself into a bind and people don't bail you out, you figure out how to be successful. So I was going to school and I was selling cars. And the only reason I wanted to sell cars, the only reason is because back in the 80s, you got a free car to drive if you were a car salesman.
You got a free car to drive if you were.
You did. It was called a demo. So that solved a problem, wow. Right? So I was selling skirts at the mall. I mean, I was literally selling skirts at the mall for like $4 an hour plus a little bit of commission.
How old were you when you were doing that?
19, maybe.
Oh, after high school.
Or 20. Yeah. So, but again, I mean, I was a fashion major, so I was going to get out of school and then I was going to go be like a great fashion designer. Like that was my game plan. So the auto industry was never in my rearview mirror or in my mirror, but it solved a problem. And so, now that, I've lived a lot more life, I really try to help people to lead them to the path to solve their own problem. Because I think when we solve other people's problems, or I help you solve your problem, then you really have not advanced very much. You got to figure it out, kid.
Yeah. We're going to make that the title of our Clubhouse room. You got to figure it out.
You got to figure it out, kid. Seriously, because I'm telling you, I mean, and I was so naive, and I was so just not experienced in life or in the world or anything like that, and I found myself in Dallas, Texas without a car. And back then there was no buses, no Uber, no nothing. I was like, how am I going to get from my apartment to the mall where I worked? Like, really, that was a dilemma. Like, I took taxis for a while, and that was super expensive when you're making $4 an hour. And so I think a lot of times, what does Napoleon Hill say? Adversity Oh God, I'll botch it. But anyways, something about adversity, right? So adversity leads to great rewards or things like that. So I had this adverse time in my life, and I got a job selling cars, and that's a whole nother story, but it doesn't matter. But it's just that took me down a whole different path in life, right? And so I think you've got to be open to the paths that the universe opens up for you. And when I started selling cars, I really liked it. It was really no different than selling skirts. It was just a higher ticket item, and I made a lot more commission. I think when I sold a skirt, I think I made like $2. And when I sold a car, I'd make $200 or $500. I thought, well, this is way better. Plus, I got a free car to drive.
When did you move out to Texas though, from San Fran?
When I was 15.
Oh, when you're 15?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you started
high school. I did high school in Texas, and then college in Texas, and then I've been in Texas ever since.
Wow, that's great. So you basically got sidetracked from your original plan, which was to be a fashion designer. You got into auto and selling cars, and somehow along the way you realized that you're serving people, and you felt like that this was the right path to go for the time being.
I just really liked it. Like, I didn't know anything about cars. And I remember I lost my first car sale. I will never forget this. Like, to the end, it was another great figure it out kid lesson, but they had just launched the Chevy Nova. And so this had to have been 1986. I'm so bad with dates, but I'm going to say 86 because I'm super close on that date. And so it was like 1986, and they launched the Chevy Nova, and we were the biggest domestic dealer in the country. So we got some of the first cars. So it was the first car sale. So it was like my second day. And I remember the guy said to me, "Does the car have a full size spare?" And I was like, yeah, of course. I don't know. Yes. Right. Versus saying, well, let me find out, and then I'll let you know. And it was really innocent on my part. I wasn't trying to deceive him. I was just like, oh yeah, sure. Of course it does. Like every car does. Right. Which I had no clue. And I remember getting a page on the overhead from the finance office. And it was like, my name back then was Colgrove. And it was like, Lisa Colgrove, come to finance. And so I go to the finance office. This is my first sale. And I thought like he was going to hand him over to me. And he goes, Mike, or whatever his name was, says that you told him that this car has a full size spare in it. And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, it doesn't. It has a donut spare. And Mike was so mad. Mike's like, well, then I'm not buying the car because she lied to me. And I was like, wow. I'm like, like, you're my first client. I just didn't know. But it was and he left. He blew out. So I lost my first sale. And but it was just a great lesson. So to this day, if I don't know something, I go find out, and then I answer the question. And so as I've trained sales teams over the years, I've used that story over and over and over again, because like that could have been a defining moment for me. Because number one, I could have gotten fired. And luckily my manager had some mercy on me. Number two, I lost all credibility with my client. I lost my first sale. And three, I was super bummed out about it. And I could have just quit. Like I could have just said, oh my God, like I'm not selling cars anymore. And that would have changed the whole trajectory of my life and my career. So it's the little things, y'all. It really is the little things when it comes to business and it comes to sales. And so I'm like a steel trap when it comes to some of that stuff. And so as I train salespeople and I talk about it, I tell those stories of mine. Figure it out, kid. Do not tell somebody that something has something if you have not verified, because you're going to get fired. So anyways, yeah, that was my first experience in the first car that I did not sell.
Did you have a lot of side jobs growing up in San Fran, like paper girl or Girl Scout or anything like that? Like, was there anything that helped to build the foundation for you have an incredible entrepreneurial skill set?
Yes, I did. I don't know if they were side jobs, but so I didn't live in San Francisco proper. I lived in San Jose, but it's in the Bay Area. And there was a mall. I was 14 years old, and there was a mall. Like I lived probably on the north side of town. And then there was like East San Jose, and it was not a good part of town, like not at all. But there was a bus system that drove up and down the street, which that's why I was so freaked out when I got to Dallas, because I was used to taking buses forever. Since I was like 12 years old, my mom and dad would let me ride the city bus from, San Jose to San Francisco, everywhere, right? It was a different time.
So you had to get a car when you moved there. You're like, I need a car? Are you kidding me? Right?
Yeah, for sure. But anyways, so I took the bus. I used to take the bus to this mall called Eastridge Mall. And my friends and I would go and we just go hang out. And so there was an ice cream store called Farrell's. And I saw this sign, it said they were hiring, and I loved the girls' outfits. They're like black and white striped shirts and a black skirt, and like they wore these little hats. And anyways, and I told my friends, I'm like, I'm going to apply for a job. But in California back then, you had to be 16 to work, to have a work permit. It's different in Texas, but in California, they were pretty strict about it. So I went in there and I told them I was 16. I mean, you didn't have to have ID. Like I'm telling you, it was just a different world. And so they hired me right on the spot. And so I went home and I told my parents, I'm like, I got a job at Farrell's at Eastridge, which my parents were just horrified. I was going to go to East San Jose every day. And I'm like, no, I want to do it. And so they let me. And so for like a year, I had, lied and said I was 16. I was really 14. And I was a waitress at Farrell's. And so, yeah, I've always worked, always, even when I was too young to work.
Thank
I'm
you,
a
Lisa.
worker, for sure.
You're a hustler.
I am.
All right, Lisa, before we continue down to the modern journey, I just want to step back. Can you tell us maybe one or two quick highlights of growing up in San Fran, and then we'll get back to the Texas journey? Things that stand out in mind,
I had horses. So, I loved that. And so I was a competitive horse rider, and I was in horse shows, and I rode saddle seat dressage. I rode, anyways, I was very, very heavy in the horse circuit. My mom and dad did very well. So I lived a very good life out there. And so really, I think my biggest thing out there when I was out there is I rode horses. Like I had my own horse, and in between my job at Farrell's, I would take the bus to the horse stables where my horse was kept. And I would do my riding lessons, and then I would leave there and I would go to Farrell's and go do my waitress job.
Just curious, Lisa. So, if you came from that kind of background, and you were still hustling, you probably didn't need to, but you wanted to. I mean, that's a testimony of your character itself. Like the fact that you wanted to go make your own money, you want to go make your own name. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, no, I like money. I mean, my dad was very well to do, but he always made me work for my money. Like I used to have to iron his shirts and his handkerchiefs.
Good for him.
But then he would pay me, right? And so, people have asked me that for years, like, because a lot of times you have those stories of I was raised so poor, and I wanted to come out of that, and I was not raised poor. And but I think for me is that I wanted to maintain the lifestyle and figure out a way to maintain the lifestyle that I had growing up. I mean, that's the only thing I can really come to for that, because I have been asked that question a lot before, and I just think that I like money, and I'm not afraid to say that. And I like to make money. I like to win. And I think that money it's kind of like a trophy. So I liked money back then. I like to be able to buy my own stuff. I didn't like to have to depend on anybody to give me money.
That's key.
And I learned at a young age that if I worked, I didn't have to really ask. I mean, because like anything I bought with my own money, my mom and dad never gave me a bad time about. Right? I come home with shopping bags. My dad's like, "Oh, you made some money this week, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Good, go shopping." So, yeah, I guess.
That's great. And our mutual friend Sherry Matthews was on here, and she has a similar story. I mean, she came from a well-to-do dad, but her dad wanted her to work and make her own money, and she said that this was one of the best things he ever did, to teach her how to be independent, because then you can survive on your own. That's a reward right there. That's a trophy.
You really can. And it was funny. I was talking with my good friend Elena Cardone the other day, and we're working on a project together. And she said, the thing about you and me is that they could take everything we have right now and we would figure out how to make it all over again. And I'm like, yeah, because, we've got skills. And if you've got skills, you can make money. And it may not be, in a traditional way, and it may not be in an easy way, and, whatever. I mean, I've made money so many different ways. I've had some projects that have been massively huge, and I've had a couple epic fails, just epic fails, right? But I don't think somebody can be successful all the time. I mean, look at how many times Elon Musk went bankrupt, or this or that or other, and so I think that an entrepreneur is willing to try anything, push it as hard as it can go. And then where I think I am pretty good is that I know when to fold them. Like I know when to fold them. Like I didn't fold it, but I sold the Fiat dealership after I heard that Fiat was going to leave the country. And I was on the National Dealer Council. So it was like being a deacon in the dirtiest church in the world. I knew a year ahead of time that the brand was going to pull out of the country. So, time to fold them, right? And so I'm pretty good at folding them when it's time to do that. So, I would just tell the entrepreneurs out there that are watching this, like, you have to follow your dream, and people that are wired like us, and like my dear friend Sherry Matthews, or my friend Elena Cardone, or Sharon Lecter, like, we are pushers. Like, we have these visions, and Sherry is probably the most like me when it comes to that. Like when we have these visions, and I'm like, okay, now I've got to engineer it backwards. Like, this is where I want to be. This is what I want to do. Now I've got to engineer how I'm going to make it happen. And I've done it a couple times, and the engineering just didn't work. I look up, and 9 months later, I'm like, this thing is not making money. It's costing me money. It's time to fold them, right? But at least in my spirit, I know that I tried, right? I know that I tried. And so it's all you can do.
Thank you, Lisa. All right, Lisa, we're going to fast forward to your story. We'll spend maybe a few more minutes, and then we'll get into the questions.
Sure.
So here you are. You're in Texas. You got a job working for a car dealership. You filled the need, but now you actually like selling cars instead of fashion designing. And how did that progress? Like, you just worked your way up the chain to eventually selling over $1 billion, I believe, in sales.
Yeah, no, didn't quite work like that. So I was a car salesman for a couple years. I sold cars, and then kind of a natural progression in the car business is to go into the finance department. So that's the person who does your paperwork, sells the warranties, the credit life, all of that stuff. So I worked my way in fact, I have to think about this for a minute. So I was selling cars, and I actually went back to California for 1 year. So I went back to California for a year. The market I'm just trying to be very accurate with this. So Dallas had kind of a crunch at one point. Like, I was selling cars there for a year or two, and then there was like an oil crunch or something happened there, where literally, like, it was like someone flipped off the switches, and it got really rough there. The economy got really rough. And so this was in the 80s. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to go back out to California for a year. And so when I went out to California, I pre-negotiated somehow. How did I do that? Oh, I know, because I grew up on the same street. Again, I grew up on the street with two major car dealers when I was growing up, who owned two big car dealerships. So
that was the signs right there growing up.
Yeah. So anyways, so I went to that dealership. I flew out there, and I somehow talked my way into a finance job. I don't even kind of remember how I did that. Anyways, so I went back out there, and I ended up in F&I, my first F&I job. And I did that for about 9 months. And then I came back to Texas. So now I had that F&I under my belt, and I came back to the same dealership that I started my career at, selling cars. And I got into finance there, and they put me down in Austin. So he was in Dallas, and he was opening a new store in Austin. And he said, if you'll go to Austin, then you can have a job in finance. So I was like, okay, cool. So I went from sales to finance. And I was in finance for God, I'm so bad with dates, maybe 8 years, 7 years. And then there was kind of like a crisis that happened. My son, my youngest child, he at that point was about 2. He choked on an earring of mine, like literally was choking. I stepped out of the shower, and that's back in the 80s. I got big earrings on today, but that was back in the 80s. Yeah, late, like probably 89, 90. And those big earrings, and he had lodged an piece of my earring in his throat. So I kind of saw that as a sign that I was working too much. I was working too many hours. And so I called my boss at the time, and I said, I'm going to quit. And so kind of fast forwarding through the story, I had a friend who had been in the mortgage business, and he said, you would be great in the mortgage business. So he got me my first job in the mortgage business. So that would have been about 93, maybe 94. And so I worked in the mortgage business as a mortgage loan originator. And all of what I'd learned in the car business was so relevant to, and especially because I was a finance manager, to the mortgage industry. So then I spent about 1.5 years working for someone else, and I thought, I can do this myself. So I started my first mortgage company. And today, our mortgage company is 22 years old, because I founded this last one. I founded in January of 2000. but there were two other companies before that one that were smaller that kind of led up to this one. And so we've had this mortgage company, Austin Mortgage Associates, for 22 years. And so again, that was, again, my entrepreneurial spirit. I'm like, why am I giving these guys half of my money? When I'm out, I'm doing the work. This is not rocket science to originate and sell a loan on the secondary market. Not a big deal at all. So I learned enough to be dangerous and went out and started my own deal. And then from there, I started an insurance company. I went to Farmers Insurance first, and I said, hey, I've got this incredible book of business because I own a mortgage company. So I had an insurance agency. Then I went and got my Series 6 and 63 because I thought, well, if I'm doing their mortgage and their insurance, I should be doing their financial planning. So of course, you've got to be licensed for that also. So I got my Series 6, 63, life, casualty. It was crazy. And then I decided insurance was too boring. So I sold off the insurance company. So that was actually ended up being a good deal, selling that off. And yeah, so I did that until about, I don't know, 2009, maybe 10. And I had the opportunity, I'd gotten a consulting contract with a boss I'd had many, many years ago. And he just wanted me to come consult. You know, he had bought back a bunch of his car dealerships. And he said, I want you to come back and I want you to kind of consult and get us back in the game in sales, right? Because he knew how well I'd done in the mortgage business. And I was like, all right. And so during that consulting contract, he was a Chrysler dealer. During that consulting contract, Chrysler reached out to their top dealers in the country and they said, we want you guys to bid on and create a proposal to bring Fiat back to America, but it has to be really cool, really unique. We're only going to give it to 200 dealers out of a network of 3,500, and only the best will win. And so he took me off of the project I was on for him and put me on the Fiat project. So I had a blank slate where I got to design the studio, the sales process, everything. And so our proposal ended up winning. Of all the Fiat proposals in the country, we ended up having the best proposal, which I had done. And so after we got all those accolades, he's like, good job, we're gonna be dealers now. And I said, this is my brand. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I wanna be the dealer. And I had never gone higher than finance manager in the car business. So to be a dealer principal, you have to know parts and service and be a general man, like lots of stuff. But again, I bid it off and I said, this is my brand. Like literally the brand has taken everything I've written and they've built this brand out of it nationally. So that kind of started the Fiat journey.
So you still had the mortgage business and this Fiat business at the same time?
Yeah, but my husband had been running the mortgage company.
Okay.
I had been out of the mortgage company for several years.
I see. So you switch
I'm
focus.
totally out of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
He runs it. It's his deal. I just own half of it.
All right,
Love America. Love America.
Yeah, love America. So what happened after you said you sold Fiat, right?
Yeah, I sold it in 16.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
And then what have you been doing since 16? Do you have any pieces, any stake at all in the auto business?
No, I don't have any stake in the auto business anymore. I do a lot of speaking still in the auto business, but I wrote a couple books, and then I put together something called Cars Her Way, and that was like an iHeartRadio show, and it was to help dealers be more to be better with female consumers. That was one of the ones that I really thought would take off because I was so known in the auto industry for promoting female consumers and women in the auto industry. And it just didn't. Like, it went really well in the beginning. And then dealers were like, well, I don't want to pay you to bring in women consumers. So anyways, that was one of the ones that I really thought would be huge and just didn't. It just fizzled out. And so, but I was speaking pretty heavily. I shot a pilot for a show called Car Sharks up in Canada. And that was pretty fun. It was Kevin O'Leary's production company.
Okay.
And so that was fun. But then I decided, after I'd been detained not once, but twice in Canadian hell at the airport, I was like, I don't want to do a reality show with 5 guy car dealers and me in Toronto in February in a warehouse. literally, like this huge warehouse, and the broadcasters were all there. It was like a lot of pressure, and it was freezing, like freezing in Toronto in February. So I had to go up there 2 or 3 times, and we shot a couple, and I was kind of the star of the show. And so that was also a lot of pressure. And anyways, so I decided, okay, I don't want to be a reality television star. And so, I mean, I was really just speaking. I was doing a lot of speaking, and then COVID hit. And that kind of hit the next pivot of my career, because everything got canceled. My agent just kept calling me every day. He's like, we're canceled. We're canceled. We're canceled. I'm like, oh my God. And I thought, okay, what's the only thing I haven't done? And that was, I have not ever had a real estate license. So I thought, I'll just go get a real estate license. And, I'll sell a house or two, and I'll be good with that. But the second, it's so funny, the second I walked into the place that I originally hung my license, I just looked around and I'm like, this is playing small. Like, I don't play small. Like I can't be stuck in one building in Cedar Park, Texas. I'd been, anyways, obviously I had played with some big players in the game, and done some big things. And so, as God himself would have it, I'm convinced, I had a really good friend by the name of Haas Pratt. In fact, you should get Haas Pratt on in your show. I had a really good friend named Haas Pratt, and he's written a couple best-selling books. And I met him through a marketing company that he and I both worked with out of New York a couple of years prior. And I get this email, and I open and like, I had not gotten an email from him in a couple of years. I hadn't talked to him in a couple of years. And this is like literally like, I don't know, right after I'd gotten my license and everything had been shut down. And it just said, hey, are you tired of playing small? Which just immediately got my attention. I mean, it was like manna from heaven. And, you ought to call me, because I'm working with HGTV star Tarek El Moussa. And I was like, huh. And so I just picked, and I never do this. Like, I'm always so busy that like, I just delete. But this was the one time in my life I was not just inundated. And so I called him, and the first thing out of his mouth was, he goes, hey, Lisa Copeland, 2 years. Oh my God, how are you? And I said, I'm doing good. I said, God, all of my speaking gigs have been canceled. How about you? He's like, oh yeah, hell yeah. And then he literally says to me, you have a real estate license? And I said, I do. And he goes, you need to get here tomorrow and come talk to me. I'm going to call Tarek El Moussa. And I think it was 2 days later. And I got in my car, and I'm in Austin. I was in Austin at the time. And I drove to Dallas, which is about 2.5 hour drive, which I never do that either. Like, who would have time to take a whole day out to do that? But what else was I doing in the middle of a pandemic? And so I drove to Dallas, and I met with him and Tarek, and I didn't even know what company it was. I didn't even know the name of the company. I just said yes. And I say that story because it doesn't matter what company you work for. It matters who you work with. And I mean, Haas and Tarek were like, we're going to do this. We're going to have the biggest team in the country. We're going to leverage Tarek's celebrity from HGTV, and Lisa, you're the one to build the sales team. You're going to kind of be, the person that's out there and speaking, and Haas is going to, do all the training, and Tarek's going to be the celebrity, and we're going to go crush this thing. And I just looked at them both. I'm like, okay, let's go. Like, I never do that, but what else was I going to do? Right. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Everything I had was canceled. I was like, what the hell? Like, I'll try it with these guys. And, but I liked them both so much. And I'm happy to say 2.5 years later, we are all still partners. We're the best of friends, and we're killing the game.
That's incredible. Thank you, Lisa. And just to conclude the story, are you, is this where you feel happy in this place now? Because you've tried insurance, you've tried mortgage, you've done a lot of things, cars.
Yes. And, I have to tell you, like, every job I had, I was happy at, as long as I was happy. And like with the car dealership, I knew it was time to go. Right. I mean, they were pulling the brand out of America. I was not going to have anything to sell except for Alfa Romeo. And that wasn't big enough of a brand. And so I knew it was time to go. So I closed that chapter, sold it. The insurance company, I mean, unless somebody's house is burning down, that's not a very fun gig to own. The mortgage company, I did everything I wanted to do. I made all the lists. I rang all the bells, and then I was done. So it was time for me to move on. But this, it isn't even the selling of the real estate, which I love and I'm pretty good at it. It's who I work with every day.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you know this, if you want me to tell the Sharon Lecter story, how Sharon got involved with me in it. I was up at her ranch spending the weekend, and she heard me talking to Haas and Tarek on the phone. This was about a year and a half ago. And I had them on speaker, and she knew Tarek because she was going to write Tarek's book. And she heard me talking to them. And then I get off the phone and she's like, what are you holding out on me on? And I'm like, what do you mean? And I told you I'm in real estate. I told you I'm working with these guys. And she's like, no, but everything you guys were talking about. She's like, you have one job tonight. And I'm like, what? She's like, you need to talk Michael into getting his real estate license. I'm like, well, why don't you do it? But then she was finishing her book, Exit Rich. And so she was just completely inundated. So at dinner that night, I'm like, hey, Michael, guess what? That's her husband. I said, guess what? He's like, what? I'm like, you're going to get a real estate license. He was like, what? I said, Sharon said, you're going to get a real estate license. So, it's been a great opportunity. And again, a lot of people have real estate licenses. A lot of people sell real estate, but they don't get to work with the people I get to work with every day that are giant thinkers. They're giants in their own right. And so to be able to align with them, work with them, strategize with them, call them my friends, my allies, it's amazing. So to answer your question, I would say today, this is my final stop. I'm done.
Lisa, I'm just curious because I grew up in the real estate business, carrying concrete bags when I was 7, built houses out of the ground, all that kind of stuff. Real estate has its ups and downs, especially selling houses. As you said, it's not the easiest thing to do.
Not for sissies.
Now you're playing at the highest level, and I look on your Instagram and I'm seeing a 6-bedroom home for sale. I don't get that part though. Can you just clarify? What do you just enjoy selling the smaller houses while you're doing the big things?
Well, I mean, my last house I sold was 2.3 million, so they're not that small. I'm to the point now where I don't have to sell another house again because I've got such a big team. But a couple things for me, I feel like I lead by example. And so EXP's got the highest production award is called Icon Agent. And so basically only 0.5% of all realtors in the US hit this production level, whether you're with EXP or any other company. And so I was like, well, I need to be an Icon Agent. Because how can I go out and recruit, or how can I go out and push my team if I'm not an icon myself? So my period is July to July. That's just my capping period. And so this last year I earned icon, right? And so I was really excited about that. And everyone called me, they're like, oh, that's great. Why'd you do it? And I said, because how do I tell other people they have to do it if I don't do it? So now, will I eventually get out of production? Probably, and put it all out to my team, but I'm not there yet. Like, I still think that the things I learn because I remember, I've only been in real estate 2 years. And so in 2 years, I've done 58 transactions personally. I did 18 my first year, and then I did 40 this last July to July, which is what earned me Icon. And so there'll be a day, but I don't know. I like it. Like after this, I have to do another training. And then after that, I have a listing appointment. Because somebody called me and said, I want you to list my house. I'm like, okay, why not?
Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate that. All right, Lisa, we're going to thank you for sharing that story. We're going to go into the questions now, which will probably pick up on a lot of your story as well. Figure about a minute each question. First, start off with your book. So if you can give us a summary of the books you wrote and, anything you want to say about that.
Yeah. So the first book I co-authored called Crushing Mediocrity with my best friend and the #1 woman jet broker in the world, Renee Bangelsdorf. She's amazing. That book kind of came about in 2016 when we literally were at dinner one night and we were drinking wine. And it was like, what are they going to say about us when we're gone? Like, we didn't want somebody screwing up our funeral or our legacy. So we kind of just dreamt up the fact that we were going to write a book together. And we did. So there was that book. And that book's done well. I don't know if it's done as well, like in the rankings and stuff, but it's done well for me because when you're a speaker and you have a book that's, pretty good book, then you get hired. And so I've been hired by the Fortune 5, Fortune 1. It's crazy who's hired me to go out and speak on Crushing Mediocrity. So it was a great book. My next book was Car Buying Her Way. And it was really a guide for female consumers. Again, I don't know that book ever did a whole lot in sales. It sold a lot to dealerships and things like that. So, they would order, dealer groups would order 500 or 1,000 of them, whatever, to put out to their salespeople. But, again, the general public, and it was just so funny, just me, people backed me so much as a car dealer who supported women and hired women and all that. But then when I went out with a business, women consumers almost backlashed on me. And they said, we don't need you to tell us how to buy a car. And I'm like, you guys used to ask me that all the time when I was a car dealer. So all I was trying to do was take that information and put it into a book, since I'm no longer a car dealer, but okay, whatever. So again, sometimes the best laid plans, not so much. And then I've got my third book that I'm working on right now called Conquering the Shift. And it's a real estate agent's blueprint to conquering shifting markets. I'm kind of working on that subtitle, but that's kind of the premise of it.
That sounds great. Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah.
Lisa, if I can help in any way, my thing is books. I love books. So if I can contribute
Well,
to that topic.
I will definitely have that conversation with you when Conquering the Shift comes out, because it's really good. And now I know some really big people. I'd love to interview you for it. But just to talk about what they see happening in the coming months and in the next couple of years. So I think it's going to be really good.
Sounds great, Lisa. Thank you. Wish you best of success with that. And Lisa, so you got three books, two and one in the making, pretty much.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And then the next question I had was about, I believe you have a podcast that's doing pretty good as well. So you want to talk about that, or?
Yes. So it's also called Conquering the Shift.
Oh,
and I
okay.
did it so I could bring on guests so that we can use that for the book. So,
Okay.
but I do it every Monday night, and I actually do it on Facebook Live, YouTube, LinkedIn, and then I've got a team right now turning it into a podcast.
Wow.
All the available stuff on it. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Any guests you'd like to mention that were on there so far?
Yeah, I've had Glenn Sanford on there, who's the chairman of the board of EXP World Holdings. That was probably one of my bigger shows. I've had Elena Cardone on. The people that have agreed to come on, I've got Grant Cardone coming on, Ari Lyondike, who's on my team. He was the Bachelor and plus a NASCAR driver. Sharon Lecter. It's kind of funny. It's kind of all my regular friends, but they're such big deals, right? And so
Oh yeah.
people would kill to get some of these people on a podcast. I just call them. I'm like, hey, I got Monday night free. I need you to jump in.
Sharon Lecter, financial advisor to two presidents, wrote a book with a third. No big deal.
She's a super big deal. And in fact, that first book I wrote, Crushing Mediocrity, she wrote the foreword to it.
Oh, that's great. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
She's
really
a great lady.
deal.
I know.
Yeah.
She's a very big deal.
Well, thank you, Lisa. Appreciate that. Sharon, by the way, is awesome. She's my mentor, and I always speak highly of her almost on every episode. So she's done a lot.
She's
a great woman.
She's an amazing lady. I love her very much.
So next question is, why do you love to wreck cars so much?
Oh, telling you, I've wrecked a lot of cars. And what's crazy is that a lot of things in my life have happened around a car wreck. So, I didn't want to put it out to the universe. I'm like, guys, probably the way I'm going to go. And about a year and a half ago, we had a wreck on our ranch. It was not a car. It was an ATV. And that one almost took me down. So like everything happens to me around wrecks. It's crazy.
You want to elaborate?
Well, I wasn't driving. My husband was, so I was just the passenger. But I broke my neck, broke my arm. Was in the hospital for 8 days, 2 surgeries. And really just took a really long time. So like anytime you break your neck, I'll tell people out there, even things like as simple as speaking. So when they go into your neck and they put a plate in your neck, they go in the front and they move your vocal cords over. Okay. And I still remember talking to the neuro and I had a choice not to have surgery or not. And he said, you're going to have to wear one of those neck things. And I'm like, well, for 6 months. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. No. And I go, you're a neurosurgeon. Don't you do surgery? And he's like, well, I'm allowed to tell you this. His name's Dr. Larazan. I'm allowed to, he goes, I was Paula Abdul's neurosurgeon. I'm like, you're allowed to tell people? He's like, yes, I have her permission. And I'm like, well, good enough for Paula, good enough for me. So anyways, so he's getting me ready for surgery the next day and we're talking and I'm like, so I agreed to this yesterday and I don't want to wear the neck brace. So I'm going to let you go ahead and do the surgery. Like, tell me the worst thing that can happen. And he goes, well, you could lose your voice like forever because they have to move, like literally physically move your vocal cord to go in. And if they go in and they nick your vocal cord, right, you could lose your voice. And I was like, well, I'm a speaker. Like I was kind of out of it, but I still remember telling him I'm a speaker. And so I'm like, I can't, like, do not screw this up. I was kind of laughing about it, but the recovery, I had 3 Clubhouse shows, and you'll appreciate this. Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
I'm sorry, Lisa, how long ago was the accident?
It was last January.
Oh, wow. It's recent.
Well,
Relatively.
yeah, no, but it was a year ago in January. So
Okay.
It's been like a year and like 6 months, 7 months, something like that. And so anyways, I had this 3-day-a-week Clubhouse commitment, and at 7 a.m. for an hour in the Breakfast of Champions Club. And so I took off 3 weeks, but I'll tell you, I mean, I could not talk over 15 minutes. So for 6 months, I couldn't speak over for 15 minutes. I'd have to rest my voice, drink hot coffee, whatever. And then, and my voice would wane out. It would wane out like really bad, to the point almost to a whisper. So that was really, really frustrating for me. And it was crazy because I had a speaking gig that for a university in Florida. God, I can't think of the name of it now, but I'd been booked, and it was for their faculty or something. And so it was in Destin. And so I was like, you know what, the show must go on. So this was probably 4 to 6 weeks after my accident. And I decided not to tell my agent. I did not tell the meeting planner. And so I get there, and about 20, and then one of the other speakers follows me on Instagram. And so she said, did you have an accident? Like, because I didn't like put it out there, but like, I would, like, if someone sent me flowers, I'd thank them in my stories and things like that. So I was kind of really under the radar about it. And I said, yeah, I did. And at that point, like, I had a gash on my throat, and, I could barely walk, because, my arm, this scar on my arm, like big plate on my arm. Anyways, so, I mean, I was, you could definitely tell I had been through some trauma. And anyways, I was like, yeah. And so, I mean, I literally get through half of my speech, and there goes my voice. And I was like, and so anyways, obviously I was very upset. And so there's another thing, y'all, is that when you can't do your best, don't do it. Like, just don't. Like I should have called the meeting planner, and I should have said, I was injured. My vocal cords are trash right now, and I should not be up here. Now, they were nice to me, and, I opened it up kind of with the story, but they were nice, of course, but I'm sure they were thinking, I want my money back. Like, we hired a speaker and she only spoke for 30 minutes. And then I just struggled through the last 30 minutes.
Oh,
and
man.
So, the show must not always go on. I don't know if we're taking tidbits out of this today. I'm a firm believer. You show up. I don't care if you're crawling on crutches, blah, 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 but I'm here to tell you, don't do it.
Well, is that what you said earlier? Know when to fold them?
Yeah, no one to fold them. Yeah. Well, yeah. But I was just so like, I'm going to be okay, and like, I never take my husband with me to my speaking stuff, but, he had to go with me. He had to carry my suitcase. He had to help me get in and out of bed. Cause like back then, like I had like a thing on my bed to pull myself up, because it was my right arm I broke. And yeah. So anyways, it was a very trying time, especially when you're not like the youngest of young. Right. And so when you're in your 50s and you start breaking your neck and your nervous system. But I'll tell you, the neck break didn't hurt at all. I argued with the doctor in the ER, but my arm, oh my God. I mean, that's the most pain I've ever been in my entire life, for sure.
Was there a silver lining to the story? Because I thought that something good happened from this, because every time you got in a car wreck, I believe something good happened.
I mean, I don't know if anything good happened from it. Probably not. But I think, number one, I found out how many friends I really had. That was amazing. Like, people that came to my house, brought food, flowers, gifts, it was crazy. Like every day, like UPS trucks coming and going. So that was really amazing. Just the people that reached out. And I think the good is that I proved to myself that I could get up again. I could walk in heels, because there's a lot of things that my doctor said, you just may not do it anymore. You may not be out there prancing around in 4-inch heels. And I'm like, I've got $100,000 worth of shoes. What are you talking about? Of course I'm going to prance around in heels again. Right. And so, just making myself push through the pain was really bad for about a year. But the good news is, I'm not in pain at all anymore, zero pain. And I'm pretty strong again. So that's good. And I go to Pilates like 4 times a week, which I probably wouldn't have done all that. And Pilates is really good for you. And I think it strengthens your resolve, it just strengthens your resolve that, you can work through it, that your body is stronger than you think it is. Yeah. But if there's anything that good came from it, I don't think so. I would rather be sitting here not telling you this story, to be honest. maybe 5 years from now, I'll be able to tell you something good happened from it. But
Well, it builds
not
character at minimum, right?
Yeah, maybe. I think that I've lived long enough to have character by now. I don't know. I never ever want to break my neck again. I can tell you that.
All right. Well, thank you, Lisa. Appreciate you sharing that story. Next question, Lisa, maybe a minute or so. Can you just tell us about, you have an interesting background that's very similar to me. I actually grew up in a video store back in the early 80s. And I believe your dad made a lot of money in the video cassette business, actually.
Okay, how do you know all of this?
Hey, I'm Dr. Finance. Listen.
Golly, yes, absolutely, he did. We yes, we owned a company in Silicon Valley that and you're gonna have to help me on the cadence of this. Was it cassette? Okay. Was it 8-track tapes, then cassette tapes?
Well, yeah. That's a good question.
Is that the way it would have gone?
We sold at the time. It was early 80s. It was Beta and VHS. That's all I know. I mean, I think the 8-track came before that. So
okay, yeah, I think 8-track came before that because this is the 70s. So we had a company that did that, and our factories were in Bulgaria. So my dad used to travel in and out of the Iron Curtain a lot. Back then, Reagan was the governor of California. So in about 1978 or 79, the unions started putting pressure on my dad to unionize his factories. Because he had one in Bulgaria that did the bulk, but then he had a smaller factory in Silicon Valley. And my dad said, I'm not unionizing anything, forget it. And he closed it. He sold it. He sold off pieces of the business. He closed part of the business. Part of the business was sold into Memorex tapes, what is today Memorex tapes. And, but yeah, we were in the tape business. So we did 8-track and cassette. Oh, and VHS tapes.
Yeah, which VHS wound up winning out of all of them.
Okay, yeah.
Became like the main staple.
Yeah. So yeah, we were in the tape business.
That's amazing. I love it.
I was so young at the time, so I don't remember a lot about it, except that we had a hell of a lot of tapes around our house. Anybody who needed a cassette tape, an 8-track tape, or a video tape, or VH, whatever, I was the hookup to get those.
Well, when you interview me on your podcast, I'll tell you the story. My dad actually owned like almost 20 franchises, and then West Coast Video took them out, and then Blockbuster took them out eventually. So I remember 10 years old. I get into the story another time when we actually went out of business, and for 2 years I sat at the Berlin flea market and sold all his inventory with him on all our free time, and it was just a lot of a lot of tapes, like you said, just sitting around the house. We had to sell them all. So.
Yeah. So my dad's company had big contracts with like Walmart, or I'm not sure if it was Walmart, but like, so their distribution model was to stores, and then the stores would sell them, because back then you'd buy the VHS and you'd stick it in your thing and you'd hit record and you'd record your shows, right? Mm-hmm. Or the cassettes. And then he also sold the cassettes to like Sony Music. So then they would put the music on it and sell it as music. So yeah, it was good until it wasn't good.
Exactly. That's technology for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Lisa. So next question, tying into this, one more question on this. Would you risk everything for something you believe in? So your dad, I believe, took out an 18% loan for his factory and gambled everything.
Oh my God. Okay, we're going to talk about this offline. You know this. That is a true story, and he never told my mother he did it. That's the rest of the story.
Would you do the same thing?
No, probably not to that length. I think about what I've got today, and for me, it's enough, right? And my dad's no longer alive, and I wish I knew more about his thought process then. I mean, he and I talked about it kind of, but I wish I knew now what his thought was back then. So I don't know whether he did it because he had to do it. Like he had to have this money to save the company. That's kind of how I remember it. Or if he did it because that's kind of how my dad was. He was just bigger than life. And he was not scared to put the black chip on 9 and roll that dice. And like me, things worked out for him sometimes, and sometimes things didn't.
And Lisa, you would appreciate this being in finance. Like one of the lessons in finance, it really doesn't matter your costs on your loans and think where you're getting the money from. What matters more is how you use that. And in that case, if he was able to get more than 18% return, then it sort of justifies if that was his only option.
Yeah, it had something to do with buying another factory. I know that. But our house was paid for, and we owned a couple houses. We had a house in San Jose, we had a beach house, we had one in Lake Tahoe. So I know that he leveraged all of our houses.
Oh, wow.
Which, yeah, I know. So you lose on that deal and you lose your house. So I don't think I'm that gutsy, or I haven't seen an opportunity yet that's so big that I'm willing to go, I'm going to go all in. Right.
Uh-huh.
And I hope I don't, because I really don't want to test myself on it, because you never know.
Thank you, Lisa. Next question. We're going to switch. So you have obviously experience in a lot of businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Auto industry is known to have some of the best and worst salespeople, but love to have your opinion. What industry do you think has the best salespeople? Is it the auto industry? I mean, what do you think, having so much exposure?
I don't. I'm going to tell you now, and this is an industry I've never worked in, but I think that the tech industry, I look at software sales. My daughter's in software sales, and she's so highly trained, and she went and got a real estate license just to kind of side hustle it. And she's killed it in real estate. But to hear her talk through scenarios with clients, and to hear how her closing techniques and things like that, these tech companies, she started at Dell. My son's still at Dell. These tech companies spend millions of dollars on training their salespeople, and it shows. And so anytime I get a salesperson in real estate that's been in high tech, I'm excited, because I know that they've been trained to close. And I think that car salespeople are the poorest trained, because dealers, for the most part, do not want to invest in training. And that's why my good friend Grant Cardone got out of the car business. He was like, forget it. These dealers will not invest in their people, because that's the way I met Grant. Grant walked into my dealership to sell me training in 2011. So when Grant himself walked in, and so they don't invest. And in the real estate industry, I mean, we try to invest, but and my company invests a lot, but here's the deal. These are independent contractors. So we can't say to them, you have to be at training at 9 a.m. on Tuesday morning. Right. And so a lot of them don't do it. Right. It's, 2% of the people. It's the 2%. 2%. I can look on my trainings, and I do like 5 or 10 trainings a week. I can look on my trainings every week. It's the same people. Wow. And guess what? It's the most successful people on my team. Wow. And they're the ones that are there. And then the ones that are calling me, asking me, God, I'm not making it. This is terrible. I'm like, you haven't been on a training ever. So.
Thank you, Lisa. Lisa, next question. Great response, by the way. You're doing great. Next question. If you had to make $10 million, all right, you had no money, you got to do it by the end of the year. Now you're using your lifetime of experiences. You can use that, but you pretend you have no money, right? Mm-hmm. So all you got is your experiences, your knowledge, everything up in your head, right? How would you do it? Maybe step by step in about 30 seconds or so. Like what would be the first thing you go right? Like kind of like what Grant Cardone did with that series, that movie, Undercover.
Yeah, Undercover Billionaire. Be sure to take notes on this, because then I'll go out and do it. It would have something to do with real estate for sure. I would go to, people I know that have a lot of money, and I would try to find, especially right now, because now there's some opportunities. I would try to find a big multifamily unit, and I would try to find some investors to go in with me and buy it, hold it, and sell it. I mean, to me, the only way to make that kind of money right now is in real estate. I don't know exactly what that would play out, especially in a 30-second conversation, but it's in real estate. It's finding other partners to leverage, invest, and buy something that has a lot of doors.
And put them on the operating agreement with you in some
You'd have to.
percentage.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd have to probably.
Thank you, Lisa. Lisa, next question. Why is being ethical important in business?
Oh, it's everything. It's absolutely everything. That's what will set you aside from your competition 9 times out of 10. Doing the right thing even when nobody's watching. Because you know what? They're watching.
That's true. That's true. Thank you so much, Lisa. Next question. Why do you love real estate?
I don't know that I love real estate as much as I love the game. I like to win. I like to negotiate. Like, I'm not somebody who watches HGTV day and night looking at houses. I'm really not. Like, I love to go look at cool houses, but like, I don't do it like some of the people on my team. Like, hey, what are you doing today? Oh, we're going to go out and look at 15 houses. Oh, great. Do you have a client? No, I just want to go look at them. That's not me. But I like the game. It's big. There's zero ceiling on it. As hard as you work, you can make as much money as you want to make. It's semi-recession proof, believe it or not. When times are good, you go out and you list houses. When times are bad, you go out and you find buyers, or you find partners and you acquire homes. So I think it's the biggest game that the average mortal can play is real estate.
That's beautiful. I agree 100%. Well, I would take that one notch up, and I think Grant figured this out. The tech world might be bigger than that, and you were kind of hinting at that earlier.
I'm not smart enough to get in the tech world, though.
It's
real estate, I can crush it, but I can barely get my iPhone on and off. So
yeah, as a whole new skill set would go in tech. Yeah. So
yeah.
Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate that. Great response. All right. Why did you join EXP Realty? If you want to tell us a little bit about that as well.
I really joined my team before I joined EXP, if I'm going to be honest. I joined to work with Haas and Tarek El Moussa. And I got really lucky in the fact that EXP really has the best vehicle in real estate today. They were the original cloud brokerage. And I've gotten to know our chairman of the board fairly well. He and I've worked on a couple big deals together. And I have so much respect for this man, Glenn Sanford. It's just like, I could fill up my whole house with the respect I have for him and what he did and the company he built and how it's agent centric. And there's no other company out there that is guaranteed that 50% of their profit, 50% period, would funnel back to the agents somehow, some way, whether it's in our rev share or if it's in equity and stock and things like that. And so talk about integrity. That is a man who walks his talk. And, there's always going to be disappointments in business, always. And what's so crazy is in 2.5 years, nobody has disappointed me yet. Now, and I'm not saying they're not going to, obviously. I've been in business a long time, but just to go that long and to see when there's bumps in the road and to see when their integrity comes out and they're like, nope, we're going to fix that, or nope, we're going to handle like whatever. And so I can't say enough. Good. What I know for sure, and I've never said this before, is that I will retire from EXP Realty.
Wow.
This is absolutely my last stop. And I get offered stuff all the time, day and night. And I'm like, I'm unrecruitable. You can throw 7 figures at me. Really, all this has been talked about and one recently. And I'm like, no, because I know what I've got, but it isn't even the vehicle. It's the people. It's the people that I'm with every single day. And that to me is worth all the money in the world.
You heard it first, folks, on the Dr. Finance Live podcast.
Yeah. Lisa this is my final stop.
That's awesome. Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate that. Lisa, next question, maybe 30 seconds or less. What does it feel like to be good friends with Elena and Grant Cardone, talk about real estate moguls? What's your
they're humans. They're humans. They put their pants on one leg at a time. Grant and I go back many, many years. So I knew Grant before he was a real estate mogul. And his wife, I said to him when I met her, where have you kept her from me? She's the most amazing, authentic human on planet Earth.
Thank you so much, Lisa. All right, Lisa, next question. What is the most attractive part of being a speaker for you? So we're going to kick into kind of what you're mainly known for these days, doing a lot of speaking. What is the most important attractive part of being a speaker for you?
I think for me, it's being on the stage and for 45 minutes or 50 minutes, I've got that power. I've got the power to influence their decisions, to influence their career, and to influence what they do and how they do it. And so if I do my job well, people hopefully walk out of that room better for it. And to me, that is more sacred than the money. That's more sacred than anything. I have that 45 or 50 minutes where I get to pour into these people. And so I take it really seriously.
Real quick, Lisa. So Tim Story showed up on my stage about 2 weeks ago. So I run the Friday night rooms every Friday, about 7 p.m. Eastern time to about midnight, about 6 hours, give or take, maybe 6 p.m. And Tim Story showed up after Joe Ingram was the main guest speaker.
I love Joe Ingram. He's a good friend of mine.
Yeah, Joe is awesome. And it's such a spontaneous thing. Like I've been trying to get him on there, and he shows up, and he only was supposed to be there for 5 minutes. He said, just to see David Hill, and he stays for 2 hours. And he goes, one of the things he said was, Dr. Finance, I can't believe how long you've got my attention for 2 hours. And he's like, one of the cool things, everyone here is listening to you. And I thought about it for a second. It's kind of like what you just said. It's like, when you got their ear, you can really tell them what you want, but you have to do that with integrity. Otherwise they won't respect your time and ability to actually tune into you for that long. So that's a really good point that you made. But there's a double-edged sword to that, right? Like you got to make sure that you honor their time as well, and treat them with proper respect, and not give them wrong information, and let speak
for
from the heart.
For sure. And, I'm a paid gun. And so, they're very, very specific with me about what they want me to speak on, what the outcome needs to be, how many takeaways they want to have, blah, blah, blah. Right. I've got a very detailed contract when I go out and speak to these corporations. And so, I always stay within the parameters of my contract, because that's integrity. And, but more importantly, I want to knock it out of the park, because people's time is valuable. And just, if just like someone's going to watch this of you and I want it to be valuable. That's why I try to come back to what some of my takeaways are sometimes, because I think that people, when they hear a speaker or they listen to a podcast, there's only one thing that they're going to hear. I promise you, the minute they hear the thing that they needed to hear, they really do tune it out. And so I would say, once you hear the one thing, that's cool, tune it out, but go execute. Because people are just usually looking for one thing. Because think about it. It's hard for us. Like, I have a hard time walking and chewing gum sometimes, right? And talking on my phone. I'm like, oh, okay, what's next? Like, right. It's very easy in this world we live in to get very confused. And so if you can be really direct, to the point, the one thing, and deliver that, I think that we've been successful.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Appreciate that. And that ties into the next question. Speaking of speaking, excuse the pun, what do you love about Clubhouse? Why do you love Clubhouse? And maybe some of your favorite stages. Clubhouse, just to preface this question, it's evolved a lot. There's basically like 3 major stages in our space that's still left. You have mine, you got Diamond Divas room, and you got Breakfast with Champions, which you run a great room on Wednesday morning. But what do you love about Clubhouse? Why are you still there? You're a superstar. What are you still doing on Clubhouse?
I like it because I think it's the 1 hour that we can all come together. I had my room this morning, and, people from all over the world, all different religions, all different political backgrounds, all different colors of their skin, ethnicities, right? But it's the one time that we can come together and have a civil conversation, because we do a really good job of queuing up what the conversation is going to be that day. And it's all about education, motivation. That's our mantra. And so if it's not educating and motivating, like, we're not going to talk about it, right? We'll leave those subjects for other rooms. And so I feel like that there's just that I have that 1 hour where I've got everyone's attention, that I can educate, motivate, and helping bring people together from all different walks of life. And so I don't spend any time on Clubhouse, barely anymore, just my room. But that's just my 1 hour I feel like that's kind of my give back. My humanity give back. I don't know how to explain it, but I like it. And I've met some good friends through Clubhouse.
Thank you, Lisa. And folks, if you're staying tuned, so today is August 17th, August 19th, that's in 2 days from now, 2022, between 7 and 9 p.m. Eastern time, Lisa will be the main guest speaker. So definitely come check us out in the Finance Club. It's going to be awesome. Lisa, just want to check on your time. We have a few more questions left.
Yeah,
I can
go
cut
ahead.
them down real quick.
Yeah.
You got about, how long? About 10,
I got about 10, 15 minutes.
Okay, sounds good. All right, we will charge ahead. So we got the next book. These are template questions I've asked from everyone from Les Brown to, Brett Favre last week, Hall of Fame quarterback, NFL player.
I love Brett Favre. Yes. I know who he is. I don't need a description on him.
And your episode's following it, so that's going to be great.
I love it. I love
All
it.
right. So the next question is, can one book change the world?
Yes. I think that, in my opinion, that there have been 2 books that have changed the world. The Bible and Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. So yes, I do believe that a book can change the world. I think books are such a commodity now. I think it's a little harder to write the book that changes the world.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, those are 2 books that have changed the world.
Thank you, Lisa. And Lisa, I've been reading a book recently. I just finished it, The Science of Getting Rich. And I came from finance, from the academic background, so this book was totally skipped. The Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill supposedly read that book first, which was in 1910. And I thought it was
I'll have to
really,
check that book out. I'm an avid reader.
yeah. So yeah, Think and Grow Rich, awesome book. All right. So what role has networking played in your life?
Oh, it's everything. It's everything. I believe in the power of people. And it's funny, Grant tells a story about how when I was a car dealer, that when he was in Austin, he was out visiting car dealers. This was in 2011. He's like, everybody shut the door in my face except for you. And you actually took the meeting. And I sat and talked to him for 2 hours. And look what that's turned into 11 or 12 years later. This friendship, right? I helped him do some things. He was out, selling training and then trying to acquire properties at the same time. I hooked him up with a real estate agent. And then I met up with him on stages over the years, always had his phone number, interviewed him on Clubhouse a couple times. He asked me whatever, but we just kind of like lightly kept up with each other. And then when the EXP opportunity came up, first person I called was Grant Cardone, and the rest is history there. And so networking, your network is your net worth. Who knows who even said that in the beginning, but it's true. I mean, I think about everything I've done and everything I do. If you're in business and you have a referral based business, that's your net worth. Excuse me, listen to me, faux pas right there. Your network is your net worth. So I think it's everything.
Thank you, Lisa. As an extension of that question, is mentoring important? And who are some of your mentors?
Yeah, mentoring is very important. I don't have if I were going to say mentors, people that I call that are my trusted advisors, Sherry Matthews, Elena Cardone, Sharon Lecter, my co-author, Renee Bangelsdorf, another friend of mine who worked for President Bush, Rebecca Contreras. So, so I don't know that I have a mentor right now where they line stuff out for me, but these are people that, in my opinion, have done just as much or more than I have. And so I trust them. I trust the information that they give me. So I definitely reach out when I'm in need of advice.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lisa. Lisa, next question. What are your favorite financial books, if any? And when I say financial, I'm talking about money, investing, business books of any sort. You already mentioned Think and Grow Rich. Any other
Yeah,
ones?
hold on. I'm going to jump in real quick to my Audible account. Let's see. No, seriously, because like right now, I'm listening to the 4-Hour Work Week from Tim Ferriss. I just listened to The Millionaire Agent by Gary Keller. I love all Grant's books. I've listened to every single one of them. But Sell or Be Sold is probably my favorite with him. Sell It Like Sirhan, which is Ryan Serhant's book. I've listened to that a few times. Outwitting the Devil, not really a business book, but a life book. The 4 Agreements, love that book. Sales EQ, Unshakable by Tony Robbins, The Way of the Wolf. I listened to them all. But I mean, they are brilliant, and these are brilliant people who have done brilliant things.
That's awesome. Thank you, Lisa. There's some new ones that I've heard on this show. So yeah, thank you. All right. So Lisa, next question. Do we need money to survive?
Yes.
30 seconds.
Absolutely. Yeah. Money's necessary, and I try to help people make more money and do not apologize for it.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa. Next question, is finance necessary for everyone? Why or why not? Now, finance, I'm talking about the science of finance, not like funding, or it's commonly confused for lending in the lending world, but I'm talking about the science of finance.
Absolutely. You have a penny, you have to learn how to multiply that penny. You need to figure out how to take one penny and turn it into 100 pennies. And then you have that $1 and you want to turn that into $100 and the $100 into $1,000 and 1,000 into, you're right. So you get the drift. So yes. So understanding the key and why I think I've been so successful is because I've done finance, right? I did finance in the car business. I had a financial services company. I had an insurance company. I had a mortgage company. So I understood, and I do understand greatly how to leverage. And to me, to understand finance is to understand leverage. To leverage is to build wealth.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, Lisa. Lisa, 3 more questions left. How important is
All right.
having a purpose in business / what is your purpose?
Yeah, 1,000,000%. My purpose is basically to help people. So I have 3. It's about people, people, purpose, and profit. Those are my 3: people, purpose, and profit. And those are the 3 things that I believe I've got to take care of people. My underlying purpose is to basically leave people, the world, and everything I touch better for me doing business with them. And then profit. It's not a dirty word. Not only do I make profit, but I help my clients profit also.
Thank you, Lisa. Doing great here. 2 more questions left. What would you like to accomplish in the next 10 years or so, and why?
I want my team to be 10,000 agents. I want to have 10,000 agents that I'm shepherding. And so that'll probably take me 5 years. And then in 10 years, I'm hoping I'm going to be on a beach somewhere.
How
That's
about
my goal.
movies, or you want to make any movies?
Mm-mm,
Nothing like that.
no.
Writing more books.
Well, this book I've got coming out, and then I am going to New York in October to shoot a pilot for a real estate show on NASDAQ. And it's through NASDAQ. And anyway, so we'll see. I don't have any high hopes for it, but I'm going to go out and do it. Why not?
That's awesome. Thank you, Lisa. All right, Lisa, last question. What would you like to be your legacy to this world? Like if on your tombstone, it would say something and the whole world can see what you wanted them to think of you. Like what do you want to leave as your legacy to the world?
That I gave it all I had, that I gave everything I did, all I got. And I think that's important because I think a lot of people quit. Sharon's book, 3 Feet from Gold. How many people quit 3 feet from gold? And anytime I'm getting ready to quit, I really, really, analyze that. So my legacy, I want it to be that I've given the world all I've got. I left it all on the field.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Lisa. Lisa, I want to conclude and thank you so much. Appreciate you being here. I can't wait to be your host on stage this Friday night. We're going to have a big room.
We'll have a big room.
And again, thank you so much for this opportunity. Before we conclude out, though, is there any last thoughts you'd like to tell our audience, as well as share any websites that you might have, or where they can find you on social media? Lisa, the floor is yours.
Yeah, great. My website, my speaker site is lisacopeland.com. So you can find out a lot about me there. And my social media, you just find me under Lisa Copeland. And I would just say, we have a big responsibility to this next generation. And I do not believe in participation trophies. And I believe that we've got to teach our kids how to figure things out. I think the world would be a better place. So that's it.
Thank you. Short and sweet. Thank you, Lisa.
Okay.
All right, folks, we're going to conclude out. So thank you, folks. Dr. Anthony, Criniti IV, also known as Dr. Finance here. You've been watching the Dr. Finance Live podcast. Here's the website, drfinance.info. We will be broadcasting this out to YouTube as well as a 20+ major podcast directory. So definitely check it out. Comment, like, and subscribe. And also, if you want more information, here are my 3 major books. I have The Necessity of Finance. I wrote that for my finance students about 10 years ago. And then I moved into The Most Important Lessons in Economics and Finance, 218 principles. And then my last book, which was a major step up from that, was The Survival of the Richest, about a 500+ page book with a lot of conclusions in it. So check that out if you're interested. Otherwise, we'll see you. Don't forget Clubhouse. We got an awesome room this Friday. It's going to be really, really cool. Sharon Lecter will most likely be stopping by, my mentor, as Lisa just mentioned to her. So, and many other as well. So thanks again, folks. Appreciate you guys. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye, everybody.